Hey folks, so in the last session, we have tried to bounce everything up and organize this Ableton project ready for the mixdown. So, in today's session, the focus is to go through the entire mixing process and hopefully, within enough time, reach at the mastering stage and have a final bounce, final output out. So far, if I'll let you hear, it's just kick at a certain level. And I have, so far, the configuration is all these audio tracks are organized in these groups. Everything is in audio, there is hardly anything in MIDI, so that we have hardly any processor load. And at the end, in the master channel, we have only touched bass to be mono. Everything under 120 hertz would be mono. And then this one is only for live streaming purposes. I have increased this gain by 12 dBs so that what you hear on live stream is still audible. As we move towards the mixing, through the mixing process and towards mastering, we would turn this gain back down to 0, and we will see whether we need to simply put gain or we need to slowly compress the whole mix up and move towards limiting it. We will see what to do later, but for now the process goes like I have a certain level of kick, and to achieve my uh, uh, desired levels, to do that kind of gain staging, what I prefer to do is I prefer to loop whatever I consider the busiest section of my track. Here drop A is what I would like to loop, so I have put on the loop of 16 bars throughout the drop. Now what I'll do, I'll keep playing this drop and I'll use my ears initially with my studio monitors in my room, which is not really treated or anything, but monitors at a certain level give me a certain reference. So initially I'll use that to go through the process of basic gain staging and probably even EQing. But then I will utilize headphones and I will put in Sound ID reference plugin by Sonarworks that is used to normalize or counter or undo any kind of noise shaping that your particular headphone is supplied with. We'll talk later about that when we go towards using the headphones for mixing. For now, I would just go for this. Yeah, so to me in my room, this level of kick is fine. And then what I'm going to do here, now I have two approaches. Conventionally, what I prefer doing is I go into this layout, instead of arrangement view, I hit tab and I go into session view. Session view usually is for live looping and other things like that, but I find it really helpful, very much similar to a Pro Tools UI or a typical orthodox, UI on a mixing desk. So I have my tracks. That's why it is better to name your tracks up initially in the project. I have my tracks here, and what I can do, I can just go to these one by one, and when I go to these one by one, I again have two choices. One is to use mouse wheel, or just click on this and drag it upward. Click on this little pointer and drag it upward until I have the desired gain for my initial gain staging levels. But then I have another approach, which is utilizing the faders on a MIDI keyboard to give me results in real time. Now, if you haven't ever done that kind of thing, it comes with a catch. The faders are often limited. For example, on my MIDI keyboard, I only have 8 faders. Those 8 faders would correspond to these 8 number of tracks. You see 1, 6, 7, 8. So when I have my mouse clicking this particular track, 9 number track, you'll see it corresponds to, no, it doesn't. Okay, my concept was wrong. So whatever you see in the view, like first, second, third, fourth, and fifth, so most probably, not even fifth. Why is this not working? Let me quickly expand the channels and see. Okay, so I assume, and I say I assume because you see, let's just check how our faders are responding. Keep an eye on this section down here. Yeah, let me zoom it in. So track number one, group. This is for group of vocals. So fader one on my MIDI keyboard is corresponding to track number two. I think this is how most MIDI keyboards by default are routed into Ableton. So accordingly, when I move second, it moves second, third is third, fourth is fourth. And I remember one of my faders has gone bad, it's not working. Ah, that's the problem. It was fifth fader that has gone bad. That's why we were not able to most probably see any movement when we were on ninth channel. So what do we do in this situation? We move to sixth one and you see this is also moving. I'm not sure if you are able to see, so let me zoom it in. You see, first fader, second, third, fourth, fifth is not working anyways, sixth, seventh, and eighth. Now, this is one of the approaches that I can do, but I also have to be aware of my groups. For example, seventh here is drums group, eighth here is drum rack group. So, what happens when I go to ninth here? When I go to ninth here, because I can see all the numbers through whatever is the number from leftmost side onwards, first, second, third. You can see all 8 numbers. So ninth goes back again to first fader on my MIDI keyboard, and it works like that. So what I can do, I can use a hybrid approach, meaning I would probably just, you know, use my alt key and click on this little collapse and expand button. What it does, it one second. So what I would want to do at this stage is just expand everything. And there is a reason behind that. The reason right now is reason behind that is pretty simple. I want all these tracks to be visible here in my mix bus. And that is so that I can have a clearer picture based on this particular number, which fader I should be touching on my MIDI keyboard. So with that, we already have our kick going. I think with our kick going, we shall be focusing on our bass first. Then I'll go back to drum rack and drum loops. So if I look at my bass, this is a 24th track. So 3 times 8 is 24, which means 25th track ideally should be controlled by fader number 1. And it is. There's no surprise. 25th track by fader 1, 26th by fader 2. So I would do what I call a hybrid approach. I would first fix these, then I'll move towards drums. So I will start the loop again after muting the mic, and then I'll see what levels my main bass and my acid bass layer should be at. Then we'll do more about EQing and rest of the stuff later on. But first step for mixing for me is gain staging. I should try to set these all the faders at their respective levels to give me enough clear picture. So let's get into that. This is stopping here quickly to share that we shall probably be side chaining our base at this point, and I have two layers, main base and acid base. I would initially want to just side chain my base, and here in the left corner of my plugin window for sidechain I would go and select kick here. Kick is selected here and it says post effects or whatever. We don't have any effects, so that's fine. Those are sidechain settings. Then we go into the plugin. There are multiple plugins that you can use for sidechaining. I find myself very habituated to Nicky Romero Kickstart 2, and we will audition how what kind of shape do we need for sidechain, how much should be the mix percentage, like that. Also, when we are sidechaining to a particular audio, like in kick in this case, we can use audio. There is a MIDI option. If we were to route through MIDI, you may have seen on some of the YouTube videos. Then comes sync basically follows on which time division of a beat based on our project's BPM this should be running on. So it's not necessary that we give our bass that pulsating effect only when the kick comes in. We can just use the sync, have no external side chain, and put it on every 1 by 4th. So that would mean on every 1 by 4th of a bar, which means every beat, every every time the kick hits, ideally for in case of 4 on the floor, we would have our bass ducking down. For now I'm using audio because I would want to probably use the band and make sure that I'm only taking away the lows of my bass. So let's just start with that. Also, it's very handy to see the waveform of our coming signal and waveform of our bass. And I'll switch between the modes as I edit the parameters of the plugin so that you can see what happens when we are in sync mode, what happens we are using an external audio for sidechain. What happens in case of this particular preset, free punch, and our kick and our bass, is that we get a very fast release of this particular sidechain operation. So it ducks down quickly and it goes back up to this original level very quickly as well. Taking example from Laidback Luke's mixing lessons and production lessons, he gives an advice that you should not totally segregate bass and kick, because then it feels very robotic and not so human. Also, when we use sidechain, the perception to the for the bass gets much clearer. Like, we can clearly distinguish, because when the kick is hitting, the bass is not hitting, and the bass is coming jumping on right after. So it's so much easier for our ears to process that. One more thing that is to be noted here is, if we go to our bass track and if we zoom in to the waveform, where it is right here, yeah, you see our bass hits were designed in a way so that they are not hitting on, for example, our kick would be coming in here, then here, then here, and then here. This area, this area, this area, and this area. So technically, we might not even need a side chain, but to make it cleaner and to avoid any kind of bleed, moreover, when our bass moves more violently, probably around in the fourth bar of a progression, this is where bass slightly changes its notes, but not the pattern. So even here we are pretty much safe, but you can see there might be some clash here, there might be some clash here when they go to this third division. So the idea here is to make things as cleaner as possible, but while producing, keeping the groove of the bass separate from kicks attack was is still a decision that is helping us now in the mixing stage. It's just making our life much easier because we don't have to go extreme on the side chain. That's why we would create a band based separation, so that we are only ducking down 236 hertz, whatever we are dragging this particular slider to. So this whole Kickstart to plugin would only affect frequencies below this particular frequency slider. So we only want our low end to be tight, and we would spare the mids and the highs. So I would prefer it to be somewhere around 200. We don't have to dial in an exact number. And then by ear, we will go for the mix percentage. We would do on and off to hear the difference. Although, as we have bass notes pretty much separated from kicks, initial hit, initial attack, we would see a difference only towards the end of this particular hit of a kick, which also means that we can probably go much more aggressive with the ducking. We can go like this probably, and drag it a bit further so that it avoids any kind of bleed at all. I think for now, I would leave side chaining right at this point, and I would go forward with main bass and acid. One more thing that I could do is shift this whole Kickstart 2 plugin from my main bass channel onto the bass channel, so that this side chain acts on a combination of main bass and acid bass. And there is another thing that we can do: we can duplicate this and put this on the bass channel once we are done with gluing and bridging these two main bass and acid bass sounds together like a single bass sound. So we'll see as we progress later. it is also very useful to throw a frequency spectrum analyzer like Span. This is a free plugin from Voxengo. And while we are doing these kind of gain staging, EQ, or any kind of changes in a mixing stage, it is also good to just get back to your master and once in a while check how what you are doing to your low end or to your mids. For example, so far it's just kick and the bass, so it's majorly low end stuff and maybe some mids and a little bit of highs. So we'll just take a look. And if I can show you, while I'm not sure if I can pin it here, because as soon as I click on the asset track, this would minimize on its own. The thing is, the more we increase the gain for acid track of our bass group, more you are going to see these these secondary frequencies here, all the cooms. The frequency spectrum analyzer Span also tells us that our kick and bass together, or probably our kicks fundamental, is somewhere around 65.4 hertz and C2 in terms of note. When you want to get surgical about the tone of your kick and things like that, you may play with the pitch of your basic kick sample as well, but I personally don't like doing that because I think the characteristic of a low end sound like kick, or if a bass hit is there routed to audio, I think the characteristic is lost when we try to do that. So at this point, I would probably just move forward. I think from my point of view, my main bass and acid bass gain staging is done. What I'll do, I'll probably throw in some basic EQ here. And as we know that anything that is probably under, theoretically everything under 20 hertz is not audible to human ears, but practically I think we can put down things under 30 or even 35 to 40 hertz. However, we saw that our frequencies were building up at around 65 hertz, so we don't want to be too harsh with our low cut. But I think at this point I can disable all other pointers and just give a harsh low cut, and I can dial down its frequency to, yeah, 30 hertz, and I can probably make its Q pretty neutral, like 0.75, 0.76, something like that, so that it takes away anything and everything that is in this area, which would work as a low noise floor for our overall track, which would kill our meters, our limiters, our compressors. So it's a good habit to just start with cleaning things up right from the get-go. You can see slight build up in this area when we play the track, in this area. Now this kind of build up would definitely contribute to rumble when we hear it on very large sound systems, probably like festivals and all. But I think based on the kind of remixes we are doing, they might be limited to clubs, and we might not be able to really get through that much of rumble, because we can still have feeling of that low end rumble from frequencies between 30 to 60 hertz. So I think I would still keep this right here intact, and then we move to the next step and see what we can do with other sounds. Probably it's time to move towards this particular drum rack here, and I have to see ninth track. If I select, would be controlled by first fader on the MIDI controller. So let's go ahead and work with that. Once we are done with basic gain staging of all the drums, which means all the drum rack elements as well as drum loop elements, what I would also like to do is subtly pan things here and there from this particular group instead of letting everything sit dead at center. The reason for that is it gives each sound its own breathing space, but it comes with a caveat. When we do that, the most club sound systems and festival systems even are in mono. They are not how you would hear this kind of music on a pair of speakers or headphones or AirPods or anything. So when we do that kind of, stereo separation of these particular sounds, in hindsight, when we are playing that in mono, we are still keeping everything at center in a different way, but it gives us perspective while mixing how we can create a 3D soundscape. We have to imagine that kind of thing when mixing. And yes, that's why it is important that initially we go through only the gain staging part without touching pan, so that later on when we are playing this track back in mono's kind of sound system, it still works and it's not having one a particular sound extreme left and one particular sound extreme right when put together in mono, clashing and eating each other's space and frequency spectrum. So the initial idea would still be to work through gain staging and EQ and then move towards panning them here and there, that too just a little bit. We don't want anything extreme given the context of this track. If we were working on any indie track or a pop track or any track that's made for radio or anything like that, for listening on a pair of speakers or headphones or something like that, in that case we could go experimental with some of the sounds thrown extremely left and extremely far off, some of the sounds thrown extremely right, extremely far off. We can use things like gain staging, EQing and reverb to create that kind of perception of depth, distance and direction. So right now we would only focus on gain staging and then probably some EQing. fifth fader is not working, so anything that stands to be worked with fifth fader, I'll have to use mouse to do that, but that's fine, I guess. As you can see or hear, some of these sounds would already feel as if they are panned a little bit, depending on the kind of samples they originally were. And you can see these samples are still in stereo. I have not converted them to mono or anything. So when it comes to panning stuff, it also depends if you are going to pan a sound which was already panned somewhere when it was put in a sample pack, or when it was designed originally by the sound designer. So it's always important to go by your ear when working on panning kind of thing. So far we are done with this bit, and I think we can move towards this perk, wood and perk, and rest of the sounds. We'll continue the running loop as is, and we'll focus on the faders to work our way through different levels of gain. Also, one thing, while we were in the production stage, we were putting all these kinds of sounds. We had a wood, then we had a perk, we also had a conga sound, then we had rim or click, we had a snare to accentuate some of the clap sounds, then we had a different kind of clap sounds, we had different kind of close heads. A lot of these sounds were supposed to just accentuate the other sounds. So we always have to keep that in mind while working in the mixing stage, that not everything is supposed to be out there and prominently audible. Some things work when they are just contributing to other sounds and they are just subtly there. Their absence would definitely be felt, but when they are there, they are not prominently in your face. They're just contributing in the groove by providing shuffle and by filling up that space. So let's move forward and keep working on the rest of the sounds. So I can say at this point we are done with basic gain staging of our kick, our bass, and all the sounds that we have in drum group. I think when we are done with this part, we may as well move to vocals, or we may move to melodic elements. That's totally our choice as a sound engineer, as a mix engineer. But I think these kind of dance tracks that we are making as remixes and bootlegs still rely somewhat on vocals. So vocals are still very important. So I would want to come back to vocals when I'm done with the tracks from the melodic group, because tracks from the melodic group set up another layer, another base for the vocals, and then we can go for the gain staging of the vocals. The next step would be to gain stage ear candy kind of stuff and see what do we have left there. And then once we are done with gain staging, we are going to work up the EQ bit. We are going to focus on groups on their own, unless we are focusing on sound designing a particular sound, unless we want to change particular thing in a particular sound. When we are just taming different kind of sounds for setting with together well, gelling up well in the frequency spectrum, I think I'm going to use EQ on groups instead of throwing them on individual tracks. So the formula is simple. If you want to change the characteristic of a sound, if you want to change something about a sound, you throw your EQ on a particular channel, on a particular track. But if you want to just subtly adjust the overall sound, or just tame them from a mix perspective, it go it can go on the group. So sound design, track, mix, group, as simple as that. So let's just focus on melodic elements now. Listen back to stuff and start focusing on melodic elements. And also, when we are done with basic gain staging, later on we may feel like in certain section of the songs, when some of the other elements are gone, some of the elements that are still present feel louder or harsher. That's when automation comes handy. We will go through that stage as well. Right now, let's just continue with gain staging. melodic layers, a lot of sounds are going to be overlapping onto each other. So, gain staging for all the melodic elements is going to be a repeated action. First, we gain stage through these things once, then we realize something is coming in much more harsher than it should. And who decides? You as a mix engineer decide whether you want this particular hoover sound to be way out in your face, or whether you want this to be noticeable, just a bit prominent but not too harsh. So based on that, we might have to gain stage this once again when we are done with all these tracks in the group. So that's how we are going to approach this. Also, at this point, I think we need to go back to this and decrease this to 10 dB, because we can see that master is clipping by up to 2 dB. Things are getting a bit too loud, probably for the YouTube live stream, because for my levels here, things are still decent. They are not too loud. We might even lower this down to 8 dB down here in the utility. Okay, let's just go back, continue with what we were doing. We need to look what else we haven't done. I think for the fifth track, that is plugs, we'll be using mouse, because that again falls on the fifth fader of my MIDI keyboard, which is not working. When you're 1 second. When your frequency spectrum with just gain staging looks somewhat like this basically tells that our track is pretty heavier on the low end, but it is slightly balanced with the rest of the frequencies. If you just outline this goes like this, and we have a nice dip at around 138 hertz. 150 hertz to 250 hertz is considered the section of the frequency spectrum analyzer, or the frequency spectrum, my bad, that muddies up your mix, that decreases its clarity. It is all about human perception. And this particular section around 3k to let's say on an average around 3k, around this area, this is what causes bit of harshness. And not even harshness precisely, human ears are accustomed to hearing any kind of sound around 3000 hertz as much louder. The perception by human ear is much louder for anything that comes here. So we have to be very careful to not muddy things up here, to not have multiple layers of sounds running that contribute to increasing the levels in decibels around this area, because then to all the listeners of this particular track, only whatever falls in this area would be prominent. And that same technique we would use when we will be working on mastering stage to increase perceived loudness of our track. We would run an EQ or maybe a multi-band compressor that slightly dynamically probably raises this area around 3K as we move towards the track, so that the track is perceived loud but it is still pretty safe on all kinds of meters. What we need to do now is we need to really do a quick run through drums track and melodies track, because they have multiple tracks in the group, to see if any of the fader is still down. We need to make sure that we have raised all the faders up, and there might be some of the faders down for which the clip is not here in the drop area. For example, if you look at this drop strings, intro strings, you may not really see them around here. And if we have to figure out what's going on here, you can see there is nothing in these two tracks in the drop area. That's why their faders would still be at minus infinity all the way down. So we can leave them as is, and we can focus on rest of the tracks for again staging. What I would also like to do at this point is again fine tune gain for these tracks of the melodic group, because that really determines my correlative level or audibility of these melodic elements. think I'm fine with the gains of these tracks so far. We may just look into ear candy, and for that, it's easier to go into arrangement view and look, because ear candy, unlike our melodic or drum elements, is not running throughout the section of the track. I think we are going very slow, probably because I'm explaining a little too much. I should not be. So let's just quickly run through. And for ear candy, instead of playing the loop, I would just go through the sections one by one. And then I'll play the sound and realize how loud, quiet it should be. Yeah, so this particular sound has a lot of reverb. That's why we are not able to perceive it as clearly as we would. When we'll go into the round two of mixing stuff on the headphones, there would be some corrections. I think this would be covered under that stage again. For now, we will have to leave this particular explosion sound a little too loud. Now the two sounds, explosion and sweep down, put together are creating that bigger chunk of sound. That's why we need to pull them both down. I think based on all the sounds that we have, we just have a few of them to be figured out, like the cymbal swell. and then we'll only have a few effects. So while we are at it, and while we are in the arrangement view fixing these things, it's better to just fix it all up at once. So right now, if we look at the levels, we need to figure out build drum, but before that we need to figure out cymbal swell. Yeah, now we can go into uplifter, riser, and this build drum fill, and with that, this downlifter that we have around here. So, then our section of effects sounds would be sorted in terms of gains. So let's look at this level. And when we are done with vocals, we might have to go back and adjust these. I think it's better that we just focus on whatever we have here. Okay, so let's go back to session view and start working on vocal section. For the vocal section, we realize that we only have main vox and pad vox. So I would just put the group volume down to 0, and then we start working with main vox and pad vox levels as we move in the track.
तला तुम में हम तुम हैं हम तुम कहीं तुम करा तुम तला तुम करा तुम.
If you quickly listen to what pad vox are sounding like, so on its own, it's just a horrible, monstrous sound. But when we have pitch shifted and format shifted the main vox layer, what this particular pad vox sound is doing, it's filling up and shaping those artifacts to not sound like poor artifacts, but rather give it altogether a bit of a darker vibe. When these two layers are put together and we have them gain staged well and EQ'd well, and then maybe some glue compression on top of them, apart from other vocal processing that we are going to run through them, then I think it's going to sound finished and give us the kind of vibe that we are aiming at.
तला तुम में हम तुम हैं हम तुम कहीं तुम करा तुम तला तुम करा तुम करा तुम करा तुम तला तुम करा तुम करा तुम करा तुम तला तुम में हम तुम हैं हम तुम कहीं तुम करा तुम तला तुम करा तुम करा तुम करा तुम करा तुम तला तुम में हम तुम हैं हम तुम कहीं तुम करा तुम इस तरह तुम करा तुम करा तुम करा तुम करा तुम तला तुम में हम तुम हैं हम तुम कहीं तुम करा तुम तला तुम करा तुम करा तुम करा तुम करा तुम.
I think for now we are done with vocal levels as well, but we need to work on fill vox 1, because then only we can figure out rest of the bits of melodic section as well as effect section. So we need to quickly run through this in the arrangement view and set its gain accordingly. Then we'll fill up rest of the missing pieces of this puzzle. We have intentionally left this bit of muddy nothing because it kind of gives us a layer that goes with these intro strings that come just before the drop. So right now when we are setting things, we would have to set levels for this fill box one as well as intro strings, and we'll have to do these two together with respect to each other. I think we would also need some sort of automation because I can see it's much louder here and not so loud here. We can also go directly into the clip and increase its gain, but I think we can also get done with automation, and it might not be visible to everyone. So yeah, that works. And we can just raise this by, yeah, we can just use shift to that's my graphic cards acting up. Yeah. Sorry, I forgot to mute. You might have to hear double sounds when that happen. We hit A and we turn off the visibility of automation lanes. Then we go back and check what our vocals should be at here in this fill part, and then we go back to the strings and figure out how loud we that want, how loud that should be. I think unprocessed raw vocals at this part are fine at this stage, at this level, because this is fill box. We might probably heavily saturate and do other kind of processing on that. So for the raw vocal, I think that that level is fine. That much of gain is fine. Yeah, this sounds like a guitar sound. So we need to again show automation, and we need to grab that and drag it up to maybe around 5 dB to see how much it has changed. We would need to go a bit heavy on this build drum, maybe a couple of dBs more. Similarly for this riser, maybe a couple of dBs more, and similarly for this uplifter, maybe a couple of dBs more. That's so that it gives us a prominent lifting towards the drop. Right now it's a bit subtle, and I think because of our shimmer and organ being pretty loud in this section, the original intro strings thing is not that audible. So it's still working as a filler, but then we have a top layer here in the shimmer and this organ. So let's see if they all fit together nicely, or do we need to further automate to increase its level in this area? This pre-drop roll is a beautiful element. I would want this to be more prominent. Right now it's sitting somewhere in the background in the mix, but we want this to be pretty loud and pretty clear. So I have increased it further by around 3.5 dB. Similarly, this long drum fill here, this may go slightly up, probably around a dB, and then we can hear things back once again. Yeah, pre-drop roll should be this loud. Now I have a small issue. I think I'm going to just cut down this sweep as well as this cymbal sound up to this point. I need to zoom in here and just push the transients down a bit further. Similarly, this, just fade it in a little bit, because I'm trying to create a zone of nothingness here just before the drop, a silence of all the other sweeps and this and that, except this drum fill. This pre-drop roll kind of pulls everything, gravitates everything into the drop. That is my concept behind this, but we need to hear it to figure out if it's working. Yeah, but then I guess we also need to increase the gain on this pre-drop roll further by 2 dB. With this crash impact and this swell going down, I'm absolutely fine. I mean, we can cut them here and it only beautifies our pre-drop roll. Also, the vocals start slightly before the drop, but that's how vocals are. Can't do anything with that. But I think we are good in terms of the effects. What do we have in break in second build? Everything else has a certain number, which means we are done with gain staging of those things. Now, the thing that's left is, I think, what was that here? Drop strings? No, those are also set. Why is their name drop strings? Okay, because they are here in the second drop. Okay, we'll check them. But right now, I need to fill walks too. So the part that is left now is here in drop 2. We would also quickly just go in here and do what we have done with or we can just make it easier for us. Delete this, get this here, paste this here, make it simple for ourselves. Yeah, when we were in the production stage, I kept two different variations of this pre-drop roll, one that we just had and another one that is on to drop 2. So we may as well quickly audition the two. Let's quickly audition second one, because we anyway are supposed to work on elements of second drop. So yeah, let's do that quickly. The thing is, the melody from the strings that is going, it's for last one bar, it is dropping down. It's the notes, they are coming down the scale, so they are giving a counter effect to this pre-drop roll, but we can still make it work. We can let these two sit, and for this moment we would just ignore that these two things are countering each other. The pre-drop roll is working in a certain way, but then the melody is going down the scale. But I still love this particular variation of the pre-drop roll than the plain one, because the plain one, it feels a bit rushed. So what we can do, we can delete this, but I would rather just deactivate the clip, drag it outside the track length. So I would just hit Ctrl X, go here, after end somewhere I would throw this, and then for these two, I can just grab 2 bars just to make sure I'm not missing out on anything. Although I have seen there's nothing, so I can as well grab this, hit Ctrl C, go 1 bar just before drop A and hit Ctrl V, and it gives me these things here. So let's audition it quickly.
Tala tum tala tum tala tum tala tum.
Okay, let's quickly go to Philvox 2 and Fill Strings 2 section. Yeah, because we need to do that, and then we need to move to EQing and other things as well. We can't just be spending all the time on gain staging, although it is good to spend plenty of time on gain staging, because if you got this part right, it's gonna make your life so much easier when you come down to other kinds of processing. We also have to work on side chaining melodic elements, because right now they are just going on like some sort of orchestra, but we don't want that. We want a bit of pump. So instead of going into individual sound, what I'll do, I'll just throw in a kickstart too, and this time I won't side chain it with the audio. I would directly throw it in a sync mode to give me that pumping effect, that classic sidechain pump on 1/4 all the time. Let's just quickly throw the loop around this area so that we can fix whatever sounds are left for us to fix. This particular Hoover sound was not that prominent when we mixed it in drop A, because it was coming in only towards the response end of a particular bar, but here it's repeated. There is tail, and then there are repetitions that are coming too often as well, so we might have to automate this to not be as prominent, but let's quickly see if without this everything else sounds fine. Then we'll just throw in a utility and automate its gain. I'm not ever automating this particular gain of a track. I'm rather always automating things with utility when it comes to automating the gain. Uh, there is a reason behind that. Might as well delete this automation point. I just need these two because I can just. Yeah, there is a reason behind that, and the reason is pretty simple. I not yeah -6 because it was too loud. Reason is pretty simple. I'm using this gain, this gain right here from the utility. I'm doing automation on this. You see this little red dot for the parameter is automated. I'm doing that because then when later on, for example, if I'm listening back to the stuff in other parts of the track after having EQing and probably side chaining and probably a glue compression and blah blah blah, all the other effects, whatever is needed done, all the processing is done, and then I need to adjust its gain by half a dB or 1 dB or anything. If this was this parameter, the track's gain was automated, and if adjusted manually, it would disable all kinds of automation. We don't want that to happen accidentally. That's why the cleaner workaround is to gain automate through utility wherever you want these kind of things, like we are doing right now. And then later on, if in case we are adjusting gain of the track otherwise, this automation would still be intact. That's the reason I always throw in a utility and click on gain and right click and go to automation and then automate as needed. So we have automated it to by minus 6.36 dB. Let's just listen whatever adjustments we need and then fine tune accordingly as we listen to this. One more processing hint to myself that we can see right now that our vocal chops here in this area are ending too abruptly, rightly so, because originally sample had a bit of tail and other things. It's just this much of vocal phrase. So when we are processing, we would want this end to be a bit gradual. There are a few ways we may try and add a bit of a reverb so that it gives us a reverb tail. And one of the best ways would be to just throw in a reverb and then freeze and flatten, or just resample this whole thing with reverb on it, so that it gives us one combined track with all the reverb tails, so that we can manually control how long of a reverb tail we want after each of these phrases. That is one of the options. Second option is we can throw in a return track for these kind of reverbs. We are anyways going to throw in a couple of return tracks with their individual utility. I would be going through that part as well in my next session probably. I think it's been some time since I have sat with the project, and that's why speed hasn't been too much. I have been a bit slow, but I think right now what we can do is just give it a go in terms of everything being on. Have we set levels on everything? Okay, we have second build and break in these two FX tracks pending, so let's just quickly do what we have done with all the other tracks and set their levels as well. We need this break-in to be a bit dramatic but not too prominent. So I think this sits right where it sits right now. Yeah, with that we can go to the second build and figure out how loud the second build uplifter should be. I can get it a few more dBs louder, I guess. It was a bit too safe right now. And its second drop, we can have bit of chaos here.
कश्ती सनम आज डालेंगे कसम तला तुम तला तुम तला तुम तला तुम तला तुम तला तुम है हम तुम कहीं गुम तला तुम 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 है हम तुम कहीं गुम तला तुम
Yeah, so I think we are done with all the layers. And I think at this point it is satisfactory to me. What we need to do is go back here and check, okay, it's peaking at minus 0.89. So we will probably have to go safer with one more dB, and right now it's just gain stage. We haven't touched EQ on any of the channels. We haven't done basic sidechaining except bass tracks. And I think at this point what we can do is we can just go to probably a slower graph and just have a look at how things are appearing from 40 hertz onwards in on frequency spectrum in terms of balance of our tracks so far. For that, I would rather go to first build and just let it build up from there.
तला तुम तला तुम तला तुम तला तुम तला तुम तला तुम है हम
Yeah, I think I'm satisfied with that, and we can continue rest of the mixing process in next session, because there are some things to be done, sidechaining to be done, EQing to be done, and then different kind of sounds would need a relative EQing with each other. Then we'll process some of the things. We would need vocal processing, then we would need to add return tracks, and then we can enter the mastering stage with a little bit of panning done as well. So we'll cover all that in the next session.